Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of Super Game Bros, the official podcast of RambleMedia.tv. I'm your host, Ricky McMillan, and this week we're going to be discussing, amongst other things, Gamescom, our predictions and what we can expect to see there. We're going to be discussing the values of the DC TV universe versus the values of the DC movie universe, amongst other things. And to help me along with that, we've got, as usual, Danny Black.
Hello.
We've got David Morris coming back from his small hiatus.
Right.
And we've got for the first time Theo Nimmo. Hi guys, how you doing?
Yeah,
Not too
not bad,
bad.
thanks.
Excellent, excellent. Now I'd like to start this week by discussing a wee bit about Gamescom. Now Gamescom starts next week, and it's the annual video games trade show that is shown in Cologne every year. Now there's been an announcement regarding Gamescom, and that's 2K's announcement earlier on the week about the heralded sequel to Mafia 2. Mafia, imaginatively titled Mafia 3, which is going to be shown, the reveal trailer, and that's going to be shown at Gamescom. Now, in the build up to E3, there was a lot of, leaks and, videos that were accidentally posted on YouTube and this, that, and the other. Do you think we're going to see something like that with Gamescom, or do you think the companies are going to hold something back this year? Do you think that the attendees, and bear in mind this year Sony aren't going to be there, do you think that the attendees such as Microsoft are, we know that they're going to be showing Scalebound and Halo 5, but do you think that they've got other things that they've held back that they didn't want to announce at E3 because they wanted, Gamescom and later on in the year to be special? Is that something that you would agree with, Theo?
I personally, I think E3. Everybody's focused on E3. It's the big. You go ask anybody, what is the big gaming announcement place? They say E3. Nobody really knows as well on the street about Gamescom. So I don't think. I think they'll more use it if they're going to be launching any new games. They're going to be launching smaller ones. Say, not their first party, but not their, I think we will see a couple. No big name franchises. I think might see a little bit more information here or there, but I don't think we're going to see big reveals.
Okay, and David, I know that you like the Microsoft Xbox One. I know that this is Gamescom is the place where Microsoft can make an impact. Do you think that this is them? They're going to make an impact other than what we already know they're going to show? Do you think they've held something back?
I wouldn't be at all surprised, Ricky. I think you've got to look at how Phil Spencer has been playing this right through the year. And he's been upfront by saying E3 was going to be about 2015, so it's absolutely going to be about the content for this year, and that Gamescom was going to be about the 2016 title. So we know they're going to talk about Crackdown. We're going to hear more about Scalebound, Quantum Break, which is slated for, I think it's March of next year for release. So the expectation is that we will see those three. They've said nothing further on Recore, which we got a glimpse of at E3. I kind of don't think Phil Spencer's travelling back from China, where he's been attending the China Joy Show, and there's some interesting stuff in that. I don't think he's travelling to Cologne from China only to say, here's the stuff I already told you about. So I don't know what it is. I don't think it's going to be on the scale of, it's backwards compatibility, wow, and everybody's socks are blown off. I don't see it like that. But I do think they've got something tucked up the sleeve.
Right. And Danny, what about yourself? What do you think? Do you think that some of the attendees, there's games that that were previously announced at E3, and some of the attendees like Microsoft have held something back for Gamescom, especially with the announcement after the announcement that Sony weren't going to attend?
Well, it just goes to show that, in my opinion, that companies like Sony, they don't really think of Gamescom as a massive conference as such, compared to of E3 or the Sony experience. I don't think there'll be massive announcements. I think we'll see more like Fallout 4, and like Dead Island 2, Dark Souls 3, just to name a few games there. I don't think there'll be too many big surprises, but there's a few rumors I've heard. I don't really want say in case, I'm wrong.
Rumours are just that, they're just rumours,
We're not going to hold you to that, Danny. Come on,
No.
Dish.
Oh,
Come
no,
on,
just one.
Everybody knows what they are. Ricky, I'll let Ricky do the honours if he wants to.
Like what?
I don't know.
Well,
Some game really.
the final, well, with the Edge Online, it was really strange. Edge Online published a advert, or Edge magazine, I should say, published a 2-page advert for PlayStation 4 that was like the upcoming titles for this year and early next year, towards the end of Q4. And one of the weirdest things was that immediately started people talking because they're saying Final Fantasy VII is going to be released this year. The remake.
I don't see it. No.
I think we would have heard about it long before now, don't you think?
I think,
Oh,
yeah. I don't think there's been enough time since announcement, because at E3 they said, this is a just started on project. What I think it is, I think they'll be re-releasing the original this year, but then, maybe next year after, we'll get the proper remake. So I remember them saying something on the conference like, this year I think this summer we get Final Fantasy VII re-release, and then in the next year we get Final Fantasy VII remake, or year up, basically because I know it's coming to iOS devices end of this year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe it's coming to iOS devices around about Christmas time.
That was it. Yeah, that's the same one. Yeah.
And the thing is, I think if you're looking at, if it's anything more than just an up-resed version of the game, if they're doing anything significant like for example, we've seen with whether it's the Master Chief Collection or the Gears of War Ultimate Edition, where they've gone back, they've redone like all the cutscenes, their motion capture and stuff like that. If they're doing that, that's a 2 to 3 year project. If they just announced it at E3, there's no way we're seeing it this year. I doubt we will necessarily even see it next year. But that's just, it just depends on how far into the project they actually are.
I definitely agree with you there, David, and yourself, Theo. I don't think we're going to see the remake of Final Fantasy VII this time next year. Maybe even into the following year. Like you say, David, I mean, the motion capture stuff, I know a wee bit about motion capture, so I know, for instance, that Norman Reedus, who was going to play the lead character in Silent Hills,
Rest in peace.
He was booked for 9 months of motion capture, a couple of days a week for 9 months. And that's
a lot of work.
That is a lot of work. So if you take into account the preparation time for a game of games of this size and impact, you're looking at 9 months just to create the character. You're then looking at a further, say, 18 months to develop an engine that you can have, your open world running in, or whatever it is. Now we know that things like Just Cause 3 and that are going to be shown at Gamescom this year. Now, do you think that they're the kind of? Do you think that these open world kind of titles, from, shall we say, the third party developers, is what's going to maybe sustain the bigger companies all the way through to around about November, when we start getting, your Battlefronts and your Lara Croft games? Is that something that you think you think that's a possibility, Danny? Is that something you would see happen?
Yeah. Definitely. I don't really have much to say about that.
What about yourself, David? Do you think that that's something that the companies are going to do? They're going to use Gamescom as a bouncing off point for the run into the holiday season?
I think that's exactly how Microsoft is strategizing it. But I'm not sure where. I mean, to be honest, I think Sony is leaning very heavily on like Battlefront and on Destiny. On those games, on the third-party titles. I think that's Sony's holiday season lineup there, whereas Microsoft, at the last count, had 7 first-party exclusives. And if you include, well, you wouldn't count Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider as a first-party, but it's going to be exclusive for 12 months.
Yes.
And I think if you look at that, then there is a there's a clear schism, a clear difference between what the two major console companies are doing this year. What I think will be interesting to see is Microsoft perhaps just taking the lid off a little bit of what 2016 will look like. And I just think they've got something, just a hint tucked away.
Theo, any thoughts? Do you see the major companies using Gamescom in some form to set themselves up for the holiday season?
See, the thing is, I think Sony, because they're not going, there's nothing really coming out exclusive. I mean, there's the Nathan Drake collection that's this year, and I think is that the only thing they've got this year? Or
is it Journey's coming onto PS4 as well, isn't it?
Journey's
already out.
Already been released.
All right.
I know one of the people I know played it for the first time, loved it. It is basically there's also the Tearaway, but I'm not sure if that's this or next year. But basically, Sony have nothing really coming out. They're relying on the Destiny, the Taken King, and basically
Star Wars.
Yeah, and Star Wars. Yeah, those are the only two real games.
Now, speaking of Star Wars, as you're all aware, there was a Star Wars RPG that was kind of, shall we say, it was semi-announced at E3. You know, they never revealed the name, they never revealed when it's getting released or anything. Do you see us finding out maybe some more details about that and more details from EA? Because they're going to be at Gamescom. Do you think we're going to find out more details about the franchise Star Wars games that EA have got down the pipeline? You know, things like, I mean, Crytek are going to be there, and they're part of the EA family. Do you think maybe there's going to be something from Crytek as well, a Star Wars based, or a Crytek there for something entirely different?
I think we are Crytek. Now, I'm just going to be a bit of a, say, fanboy. I want Crytek to announce Time Splitters 4. That's all I want from Crytek. They own the rights right now. That's all I'd love. I mean, some of my best gaming memories of the PS2 were building my maps in Future Perfect and just having, I think it was 3 other friends over. Just, the game is phenomenal, and I think we need something a bit more like, because there's nothing that ever replicated that feeling of creating your own maps. Forge mode, yeah, it was good, but sorry, again, I was a tangent about Time Splitters. But yeah, I think maybe they could announce a Time Splitters. Unlikely. I think they're just going to be working on a new Star Wars themed game, which, yay, Star Wars. Same time, not Time Splitters.
What do you think about that, David?
I'm going to throw something in here which it's purely out of left field. I'm going to say Battletoads, because Rare will have put out the Rare collection, so that'll be out and it'll be live. We know they're working on Sea of Thieves, and we're not hearing anything about Sea of Thieves at Gamescom, and I just wonder whether Battletoads is perhaps something for current generation. Battletoads might be what's tucked away. So that's a I've got nothing to back that up, other than you just kind of know that Battletoads is something that's kind of quite close to Phil Spencer's heart. So I think if Rare came to him and said we can do a current gen version of Battletoads, would they green light that? And I just think that's the kind of thing that might get approval and backing from the first parties.
And what about yourself? What do you think? What do you think we'll see? I mentioned Crytek. Do you think there's maybe another Dead Space or a Deep Space? Sorry. Do you think
no, I actually think the next game they possibly could do would be another Crysis. That's a series that's very dear to my heart.
It's a cracking game, isn't it?
Crysis 1 and 2 were amazing on last gen consoles. I'm not a PC gamer, so I have a PlayStation and PlayStation 3, and I am a massive Crysis fan. He really pushed the consoles to their limits, especially Crysis 3, if you remember, David.
Yeah, we had that on the 360, and it was just a super game, really, really nicely done. Do you know? And it was a game you could just sit in. It's like, sorry, where did those 4 hours go?
Yeah.
You know?
What's your thoughts, David? Do you think they could possibly announce another Crisis soon, or?
That's possible. Do you know? I just think there's something rumbling away now. If we come to Gamescom and we come up and they say, "Hey, here's Crackdown, here's Scalebound, here's Quantum Break, and here's nothing else," I like what you're saying about the Star Wars kind of universe type game that EA were talking about before, and maybe is this maybe something we're talking about as possibly a cross-platform game? Because now that we have, and I know we're going to come on to talk about this Windows 10 out there, are we going to start to see more and more games where you'll be able to work cross-platform between, say, the Xbox and the PC? And I'm wondering whether, we already know we're getting Fable Legends, but I'm just wondering when we're going to see some other titles talk into that sort of cross-platform genre.
That's a interesting point. I mean, currently, with the way that Sony have got their servers set up for things like cross-platform, there's only a couple of games that actually deal with that sort of thing. I know that with the Xbox, it's much the same, and with Nintendo, because they have cornered a complete niche market and said this is ours and it's always been ours and nobody's getting it. Because of that, I genuinely think that crossplay is, further down the line, people are going to start asking questions about maybe being able to crossplay PlayStation to Microsoft. I'm not saying that's a possibility. I'm saying people are going to start talking about that, and I don't know if you were to separate the different forms of gaming, whether it be mobile or whatever. I don't know if that would be such a good idea. Long term, short term, certainly. But I digress. I genuinely think that we're going to see one or two games. I mean, David, when you said Battletoads, that actually surprised me, because I thought, whoa, that would be something worth holding back. That's the thing. I don't think there's anything that, from what we know, that's going to be shown there. I don't think there's anything that's worth holding back on.
And so for me, it feels like Gamescom is not about what you're doing this year. It's kind of painting the picture for next year. And if we're looking at 2016 titles, and the fact that Sony's not there and they're doing their own thing at the Paris show in October, I think it is, it kind of, I can see where I think that Microsoft are coming from with this. EA have got opportunities to kind of talk up what they're going to be doing, obviously, with like the likes of Battlefront and their other titles. I just kind of feel there's an opportunity for something a little bit different, and that's why I said I'll throw in something like Battletoads, because we know it's a kind of favourite of Phil Spencer, and if you're looking for like a fanboy with the pockets to do that, he would be the guy.
See, you mentioned about I don't think they would announce a Crysis game. Basically, Crysis 3, what were the sales figures of that? I don't think it sold that well. I didn't really enjoy it as much as an FPS, but I just don't think it's got the money. I don't think it's got the financial side. Tech-wise, it's amazing. Looks great on everything, but I just don't think it's going to. I think the Crysis franchise, we might get a spin-off of something in the next couple of years, but Gamescom feels a bit too small, if that makes sense. Yeah. Battletoads, I actually think Gamescom is the perfect event for it, because it's not overshadowed by massive franchises like Fallout or Call of Duty at E3.
Yeah.
But it's not a tiny event. People tune in. So I think if there is an event for Battletoads to be announced, Gamescom is that event.
I also... Sorry, Ricky.
Sorry. Danny, would you agree with that? Would you say that Battletoads Gamescom, is the perfect event for Battletoads?
Yes, Game for example, like prices would require something like E3
Yeah.
or even the PlayStation experience, something of that scale rather than Gamescom. I think you're right. It'll be Battletoads if they are going to something.
No, it's funny. As soon as I said Battletoads, or as soon as you said Battletoads, I got a wee message there basically saying, yeah, Battletoads. Yeah, that's something that they should bring back. Now we could talk all night about Battletoads, but I'd rather we moved on. Now, Windows 10 was released this week, and I know David, Danny, and Theo yourself, you have already done the update. I personally, I haven't as of yet, but I will be. Yous were waxing lyrical about it, so I trust your judgment. Is DX12 going to make a difference to gaming? When it's launched on Xbox One, is that something you would think it's going to make a difference, David?
I absolutely believe so, because I can see it already running on my PC. So my machine is using a GeForce 480 GTX. So it's an older card, but it's a decent spec card. I can tell the difference in how hard my PC is having to work running DX12 versus DX11, and it's effortless. And that's just all in the software and the driver. So if that is what we get when we introduce DX12 onto the PC, when it comes time to roll out the new dashboard onto the Xbox, then I think that's when we get DX12. Now, from what Phil Spencer has said, is there won't be any immediate kind of uptick, but it will make it a lot easier for developers to do the magical 1080p 60 frames per second stuff, which seems to be a big deal.
Yeah, a lot of people do make a big deal about that. I personally, I don't see the point. I mean, I've been gaming for a long time. I would rather just have fun. But
Sure.
that's a personal thing, and that's a subject for another podcast altogether.
Yeah.
Now, Theo, what about yourself? Do you think it'll make a difference to gaming? I know you play a lot of PC games online.
Yeah, there's two games I really play on my PC. I play mostly on my PS4. I play Battlefield on the PS4, but I play Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, and League of Legends. Both these games, it's not super important to get 60 frames per second, but you have an advantage if you do. So, pretty much, I really just think if it can improve lower quality graphics cards like on PC, as soon as that starts to come to Xbox, that is a huge boost. If basically, as long as it's powerful enough, and it won't affect older games like Master Chief Collection, but if that improves the potential, maybe we could see another Last of Us level of. Because if you look at Last of Us on the PS3 compared to, say, Uncharted 1, just the quality of the difference you can see. If they could do a leap like that, say from Master Chief Collection to something even better, I'd say DirectX 12 for every Xbox One.
Yeah. What about yourself, Danny? I know you, as you said earlier, you're more a PlayStation man, but do you think DX12 is going to make a major difference when it comes to gaming, whether it be console or PC?
Yeah. Theo would know more about it than I would, but yeah, it seems to be that I've heard a few people mention it today in regards to Windows 10. I think it will make a bit of a difference, yeah.
And would any of you say that it would make such a difference that it gives Microsoft a chance to, because as we all know, they're currently playing catch up in the sales, but I would rather have a fair and even market, because that would push the developers to make the next really good game and so on, instead of, as I mentioned the other week, developers getting lazy due to backwards compatibility. But is it possible that maybe DX12 is something that will allow Microsoft to catch up quickly to Sony, or do you think this is a long-term goal now?
Basically, if they announce a Last of Us level quality game for the Xbox One with all the DX12 stuff, then I might have to put my mind. Banjo 3 is the big one that I said. If they announce a Banjo 3, graphics are important, yes, but I'm not going to be buying a console just for one game's graphics. But say something like Banjo 3 gets announced, maybe I'll have to buy one, and if it looks even better with DX12. Basically, what it lacks at the moment is games. It lacks a game that sets it apart massively from the PS4. I just feel like it could. They just need a game, pretty much. Master Chief Collection was trash. Amazing concept, everything was perfect until release. I
think we're still tagging the Master Chief Collection because of the problems with multiplayer. But the campaign stuff was brilliant, and the reworking, the remastering they did of Halo 2, I think was just excellent. Really, really nicely done. Where we might be heading with this could be, what if we get something completely gobsmackingly brilliant with Halo? Or is it Tomb Raider that's going to harness DirectX 12? I don't know whether we're too far into the development cycle for those titles for that to matter. And maybe it's, are we going to see with Crackdown or Scalebound or even Quantum Break, we're going to see them really harness the DirectX 12, and all of a sudden we would go to a position where, games will just look better and play better on the Xbox, and it's like, well, that would be a kind of bit of a turnaround. Could that be significant in the overall sales battle? I don't know. But I think it's part of a package of Windows 10, cross-platform, game streaming to your Windows 10 device, DirectX 12. Clearly, there's a strategy at work with Microsoft. It's all about kind of harnessing not just the console, but all your devices and kind of tying it all together. And I think that's clearly the space that they're trying to play in.
It's creating a level of interconnectivity that's unheralded.
But yeah, for sure.
Now, let's move on a wee bit from Windows 10. Now, as some of you may or may not be aware, there is a new DC movie coming out, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Who versus who?
Batman vs Superman. Now we touched, especially when we were doing the Marvel, when we were discussing Marvel, we talked about the comparison between the TV shows that were produced in the Marvel universe and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm thinking DC, they've got, to the best of my knowledge, it's only 3 major shows: Arrow, Flash, and Gotham, and as we know, there's been a couple of announcements regarding Flash and Gotham this week, with Michael Chiklis joining the cast of Gotham as like a sort of mentor for Jim Gordon. Now, in comparison to the cinematic universe, in my opinion, the cinematic universe that DC produced, especially once they gave control of it to Christopher Nolan, is a much more grittier universe than Marvel. And I think because DC are a more grittier comic, shall we say, than Marvel, there's this, to me, the movies in that universe and the whole DC concepts appeal to me on a base level, because to me it seems more real, whereas Marvel's all bright and airy. Then of course Marvel are bringing out Deadpool, so we can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
But I personally think that the cinematic universe that DC have produced, ever since, say, Tim Burton creating the first Batman, we'll avoid mention of this third and fourth Batman movie, gentlemen.
Oh, Joel Schumacher, eh?
Yes.
See, I like those films, but only if you see it as films inside the Batman films. So films about Batman in the Batman universe.
Right, I think I get your point. However, I'm sure many of the listeners will agree when I just say two words,
They're trash.
which will just destroy all arguments. Bat nipples.
Yes.
I was just about to say that.
See, the thing for me was bat credit card.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's all those things. We could go on all slating those movies.
I mean, I absolutely loved the Tim Burton movies. I loved the kind of sort of dark, real gothic sense that he brought to it, and I thought Michael Keaton was actually quite superb as Batman. I really do.
Sorry, David, carry on. You were saying.
No, he brought a real kind of duality to the character, playing obviously Bruce Wayne and Batman, and there was I think there was just something that he brought to that role that was kind of, it was edgy, it was kind of, you weren't really quite sure where it was going, and it was very dark, and you had Burton's kind of theatricality laid across the top of that with those wonderful sets and things. If you look at those first two movies, I think you have to look at those and say they were masterpieces in terms of movie making in if you like the fantasy genre.
Yeah, I've got to agree. Even Tim Burton would agree with you regarding Michael Keaton as Batman. Tim Burton has always said that out of all the actors and that who have played Batman past and present and up and coming like Ben Affleck and that, Tim Burton has always said that Michael Keaton's the best. But the edit that Tim Burton's seen of the original Batman movie and the edit we've seen are two different things. So we don't get to see Michael Keaton as being even grittier than and more, he puts more meaning behind the Batman character, the duality of that character, and we don't get to see that until they released the director's edit earlier on this year, which you can get on Blu-ray or DVD from HMV or Amazon or whatever. But a story about Michael Keaton that I'll quickly tell this from the Batman set is, see the cathedral scene when they're going up the bell tower? Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah. Near the top, there's a guy that he fights on a wooden platform, and he ends up throwing the guy down the bell tower. That guy says that the guy's a professional stuntman, and he said in an interview one time, he was asked who hit you the hardest, and he says Michael Keaton. The guy just didn't. He became the Batman. He was actually punching them, like the bit where the guy jumps over the fence and starts swirling the swords about, and he just kicks him in the face. Aye, that's a kick. There's no martial arts training or any special stage management. He kicked that guy in the face.
See,
I love that.
I assume you've all seen Birdman, right?
I haven't, but
No,
all I hear about it is just how fabulous that Michael Keaton is in it.
It is for Michael Keaton. Basically, I've always been a fan of the two Batman films, mainly as well for Christopher Walken in Returns and Danny DeVito. I love Danny DeVito is just phenomenal as Penguin. He's creepy. He's not he's not. Compare it to, say, animated series Penguin. He's too creepy for Penguin, but he's so amazingly just wrong. You cannot like him as a character, but you can like the actor. Anyway,
and you can't talk about that and not talk about Jack Nicholson as the Joker. My goodness sake, was just like
he is a. See, what I didn't like was the origin of it. How you saw him pre-accident. See, I've read. Have you all read Under the Red Hood? Not Under the Red Hood. The Killing Joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we're not going to spoil it for anybody, but it was announced earlier this week that Mark Hamill was signed on to play the Joker in the animated version of The Killing Joke. So no spoilers.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, no spoilers.
I heard he was not to do it,
but
I heard
if you haven't read The Killing Joke and you can't wait to watch it, then get the graphic novel as soon as you can, and don't even read it. Just go to the joke at the end. The Joker it's worth it. Believe me, it's worth it. It's fantastic.
It's so amazing. I love the attention to detail. Killing Joke's phenomenal, but the thing is with it, I don't like knowing who the Joker is. So basically, that's what I've always seen the Joker as the opposite to Batman. He is what Batman is not. We know who Batman was pre-Batman. I don't think we should ever know who the Joker was pre-Joker. I don't think, Batman is all about order and rules. The Joker has no order. The Joker has no rules. That's what I didn't like as much about Nicholson, but I did like how he was the crown. He was the gangster. He was.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Nicholson, and then you have to talk about Heath Ledger and his portrayal in the Nolan films, and like quite different, but Heath Ledger was just absolutely scary, just genuinely scary, and it was like, I know he got an Oscar nomination posthumously, didn't he?
Yes, he got the Oscar.
He got the Oscar.
He won it,
well, thoroughly deserved, because what an acting performance that was. It was just quite
rewatch the
amazing.
party scene anytime, and just he is scary, like legitimately scary.
I don't think there's much acting going on from the crowd. I think they're all like, what's he going to do?
Michael Caine was supposed to have lines in that scene, but he was so scared of shocked by Heath Ledger that he forgot to say his lines.
And Christopher Nolan, being the kind of director who doesn't leave anything on the cutting room floor, just left it in. And that is reminiscent as well of a story about Heath Ledger on the set of Dark Knight. Now, before, obviously everyone knows that he passed away, sadly, but one of the stories that came out was that even before he passed away, he was going to be getting nominated for the Academy Award simply because his performance was absolutely stunning. And this is what people forget. Heath Ledger's Joker, okay, you hear him a few times in phone calls and that sort of thing, but he's actually only on camera for a total of 19 minutes in that movie.
And he dominates it.
Yes, entirely. See the scene where the mayor makes the head of the police makes Jim Gordon the commissioner.
Yeah.
And the Joker's sitting there with his arms extended, clapping. That was ad-libbed.
Unscripted.
Totally unscripted.
It's just brilliant. It's just it's like, why is he clapping? What does he know that we don't? Oh God, is everybody safe? Is Jim's family fine? There wasn't much Batman comparatively in the film. It was more about the Joker and the Joker's plans than Batman being. If that makes it's more.
Yeah,
Joker was the focus of the film.
I assume everybody knows the scene where he blows up the hospital and he walks outside in the nurse's uniform. So he walks outside and he presses the button and nothing seems to happen. And so at this point in time, it's just that the stuff's running late. So he gets to flick the switch, starts flicking about with it, shrugs his shoulders, turns around, then it explodes and he just carries on. That explosion was about 15 seconds late.
Yeah.
But his performance just carried that through, and of course, as you see, Christopher Nolan left it in, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, of course,
it's completely brilliant.
It is Joker. It is the Joker in his most true form. Chaos, and the chaos isn't going chaotically. Where's my chaos? And he reacts perfectly. He chaotically chaos. He knows how to. He makes chaos when there's supposed to be order in the chaos.
Now, I think one of the things that you mentioned earlier, Theo, about not liking to understand the origins, kind of makes me wonder what you're thinking on Gotham, the TV show is.
Hate it.
Yeah?
Really, it's the whole. Basically, it's very cheesy. Like, that's that's the Doctor. He's very cold. You might say he's a Mr. Freeze kind of guy. It's those sort of lines. It's just like, that's obviously not a line, but it's just the dialogue is dreadful. We know Bruce Wayne's going to become Batman. We know, what's his face is going to Cobblepot is going to turn into the Penguin. We know all these little bits and pieces. You don't need to keep telling us the audio. It's like they keep looking into. You'd expect them to look into the camera after and go, get it, guys, because he's.
So you see, I'm gonna come back and say I really like Gotham.
Yeah.
And I accept what you're saying there, Theo, about the kind of it's the nudge, wink, wink. Hey, look who that is. You know who that's going to be. I think you need to give. I think there's a couple of things. Is that the performance not of the Jim Gordon character, but his police partner. Yeah. He's actually probably one of the most interesting things in the show.
Donald Logue is Harvey Bullock.
Oh, he is fantastic.
Harvey Bullock is my favourite actor in that.
So fantastic.
The Harvey Bullock character in the comics, the graphic novels, any video. I mean, he's in DC Universe Online, right? And I hate him in that. You speak to him twice, and I hate him in it, right? But Donald Logue is Harvey Bullock.
Oh, it's genius performance, isn't it?
They've got to give that guy an award, right? Just
What's everybody's thoughts on Alfred, the guy who plays Alfred?
Listen, I really like it.
Pertwee.
Yeah, I really like it. I think, Sean Pertwee is obviously some sort of ex-special forces guy.
Son of it's
John Pertwee's son.
It's John Pertwee's son. Yeah, and do you know what? There's one of the episodes in the first season where somebody comes to the house and they're trying to catch Kat. They're going to try and kind of kill her, and Bruce gets kind of caught up in that. But then you see Alfred turning into some sort of special forces ninja and kind of shooting guys and kind of beating them up and doing that, and it was like fantastic. I thought, no wonder that boy's safe.
Well, that always was Alfred's backstory. Alfred Pennyworth. Okay, the Wayne family kind of borrowed him from the British royal family, but we'll not go into that. But Alfred Pennyworth's backstory was that he was a trained combat medic.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in the armed forces.
Right.
Bring up the Joker. Gotham is actually going to be going into the backstory or making up a backstory to do with Joker. From what I've heard.
So they have kind of hinted at it.
Yeah.
In one of the episodes, but nothing's been out and out stated, and so I think there's got that. I think personally, we need to give them room to breathe. They've got the second season, which I think is terrific news. Let them try and develop the characters, and let the actors kind of understand the roles a bit more. I kind of like Jim Gordon, but there are times when he feels he's a little bit two-dimensional to me, and he just gets angry really quickly. Yeah. And I thought, that's not Commissioner Gordon, so, what's his journey, what's his arc? So it's different, and I'm kind of still trying to figure that one out.
I really can't wait to see what they do with Cobblepot. He's one of my favourite characters as well.
I was going to refer back to what David and Theo said about Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, up until Gotham, Danny DeVito was the Penguin. Yeah. But see the young guy they've got playing Penguin in Gotham, he's brilliant. He is absolutely fantastic. And I don't think they would have got a second season if it hadn't been for
Robin Lord Taylor's the boy's name.
Yes.
Yeah. The way they do his character is very, very smart.
Yeah. Yes. I haven't heard of him before, but it's like, wow, he's sensational. Really, really. Really sensational. He's one of these guys who's probably done a pile of American TV, and he's done guest roles on different shows and what have you. But I just think he kind of really does something interesting. And then you've got the guy who plays Nigma, Corey Michael Smith, and I think for me he is. You could just see him starting to fray at the edges there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I thought, that's just starting to get interesting.
Yes.
There was One episode, sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry,
One episode where he was in the storeroom with the clerk. I don't know her name, and you could just sort of see that whenever they were picking on, there was like the police officers were picking on the clerk. You could see his eyes sort of twitching, just behind. You could tell he was starting to snap. I think season 2 you'll see him sort of turn into the Riddler. Not necessarily full flesh.
You can start to see it now. Kristen Kringle is the clerk that you're referring to, played by Chelsea Spack, and
yes,
I think she's sussed him. She knows there's something else going on there. She's figured out the riddle, and I think he's simultaneously scared, but actually he kind of respects her more for having figured it out. So that will be interesting to see where that goes. But I just think it's a show that I'm delighted that they're going to get a second season, and we've got a kind of real serious opportunity to kind of understand it and kind of see where it goes. The thing for me is kind of for where they take the story will be very interesting. The guy who's writing Gotham is the guy who wrote The Mentalist, Bruno Heller.
Yes.
And that's a guy who can write intricate storylines and can work with the talents of his cast. So now that we kind of understand who they are and what they can do, maybe there's an opportunity for us to start to see some real interesting stuff.
Well, I think in a way, in the first season, because they used that to introduce many of the, shall we say, the canon villains. Harvey Dent was introduced, the Joker was introduced, Riddler was introduced, Penguin's been introduced, Catwoman's been introduced. Because they had so many to introduce, they basically, it wasn't that they oversaturated the first season, but they used Jim Gordon to take out the old bad guys. I'm just waiting for the episode where Jim Gordon kills Calendar Man. So they took out all the old canon villains, pre-Joker, the pre-1948 Batman villains. They've got rid of all of them, and what's left is what everyone knows, the canon villains, your Jokers, your Riddlers and that.
Sure.
And I think this season, season 2, we're going to see more of a development of the story arc of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've seen that enough.
So
they've also mentioned that he starts his training to become Batman as well.
So as I understand it, at Comic-Con this year, Gotham was one of the panels there. And amongst the things they've talked about, we're going to see a lot more of Harvey Dent in season 2. He's now becoming, instead of just a guest star, he's a recurring character. And the guy who plays Lucius Fox, actor by the name of Chris Chalk, he's going to be a recurring character. So I think we can start to see the development. What might be an interesting restriction here is the young boy who plays Bruce Wayne. You might want to grow him up, but you can't unless you replace him.
Exactly, David Mazouz. And regardless of what anyone thinks about, obviously we know it ends up with him coming back to Gotham after a period of time and becoming Batman. We know this. So we know that there has to be a point in the future with Gotham where Bruce isn't in it.
See, that's personally what I think's the flaw of the whole series. It's a prequel, but we don't know the universe. Basically, DC, they've got what? They've got 4 universes on the go now. I think they've got Arrowverse, Gothamverse, and then the Cinematic Verse. That's 3 different universes which are not linked in any way. So we don't know the Batman of Gotham will not become the Batman of the films. So it's just, I think they're packing too much.
I think if you were to kind of look at the comparison between DC and Marvel, what Marvel have done is tied in the TV shows, so the TV shows and the films exist in the same universe, and that to me is that's probably a differentiation just now. It's almost as if DC's decided to just dip their toe in the water. When I first started watching Gotham, And you know, I think I can't remember how many episodes they had the first season, but when you kind of looked at that and I thought, okay, this is interesting. This has potential. But it's as if they've not been quite sure. Whereas I think, you know, Marvel's plan to take over the world through TV and cinema is quite clearly laid out, and each show and each film is designed to do just exactly that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Marvel's plan to take over the world. Brilliant, because that means it's Disney's plan because they own Marvel. Yeah. Now, I'd just like to point out, Theo, you mentioned Arrow earlier on. Now, the Arrow universe and the universe of the Flash TV show,
and Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I didn't even
that's
realize that. There you go.
Jeez. Oh, and Constantine. Constantine's the fourth universe, but that's cancelled?
That's been cancelled.
That's been cancelled.
Yeah, they didn't have him smoking, so fuck off.
Arrow and Flash, their universes have crossed over, and a couple of times now. And I know, Danny, you're a big fan of the Arrow show. Whereas
slight understatement, but you know.
Whereas myself, I like the Flash. You know, there's just something about it. I think they've got with the Flash, the guy that they've got playing Barry Allen is, to me, he's the right guy. And the other thing is, the original Flash TV show that came out in the 90s, the guy that played the Flash in that is playing Flash's dad. He's imprisoned dad in the Flash TV show that's out now.
And the trickster is Mark Hamill.
Yes.
Yeah, and Mark Hamill was in the original. I do love that. See, Flash for me, I really enjoy. I enjoyed a couple of episodes, but I just don't like the Flash in general. Maybe it's basically I find his villains not boring, but sort of Gorilla Grodd. You know, it's like it's a bit too. Basically, you got a guy who can pretty much do anything with Speed Force, who are his villains. While with Marvel, Daredevil, his villains are very clear. They are people on the same level as him. People who are Bullseye, Punisher, Kingpin. These people, yes, they're not going to be taking over the world anytime soon, so Daredevil can take them on. But Flash, I can take down a psychic gorilla. Basically, it's all about power rankings, and I just feel Flash's villains aren't to his level. If that, it's like he's a tier 1. Gorilla Grodd feels like a tier 3. I know he's got all the powers and all that shite, so he's probably a tier 1. But that's the problem with it, and the fact that they can't use CGI every single week, that just it puts the show on a tough spot. It's like, okay, we want to use this super powerful character. Who's he going to have his battles against? I mean, you've got Reverse Flash, Professor Zoom, but
yeah. Can I just say I did enjoy the Flash, but not as much as Arrow. But that's because Arrow had 2 seasons before Flash came to develop the character, and that's why I prefer Arrow. It's because I've invested in it more emotionally than Flash. Now that's not to say Flash season 2 could be better than season 4 of Arrow, because Arrow there's going to be quite a lot of changes in Arrow next season. I'm not going to spoil it for those that haven't seen it, but
now the one thing is, I mean, both yourself, David, and Theo, you both mentioned Speed Force. Could they use the Flash and the fact that he effectively breaks the universe in the Infinity Crisis? Could they use that to combine the cinematic universe that DC are creating with the TV universe?
I've been thinking about for months. I don't think they will, because Infinite Crisis, it is one of the most complex comic events of all time. I think the only thing that on par with complicatedness is the current Secret Wars from Marvel. There's nothing. It's so confusing. You try and explain. Okay, the type of person who watches superhero films is someone like my dad. If I explain to him, he goes so fast that he breaks the universe. and so all the films and the TV show are now the same universe. Hang on, wait, what? So they're the same, but they're not. It gets to basically yes. For comic book fans, it's a phenomenal idea, but for your general movie-going audience, they're not going to care who's oh, this universe is that universe.
Yeah, I don't think DC are into kind of global domination in the way that Marvel are trying to. So I don't see how these tie together. I think you look at things like Flash and Arrow as being shows worthy in their own right, and they'll either carry or they won't. And a little bit of crossover is absolutely fine, but it should just be for that's a fun moment. I don't see it as necessarily being here's how we stitch all this together. Marvel, on the other hand, is very clearly saying that all this stuff works together, and it's all.
I mean, the whole tagline for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was "It's all connected."
Yeah.
So, yeah. I probably should mention there's another series, there's another universe, Supergirl universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just
okay, I've got an interesting piece of trivia for you here. You can tell I'm cruising IMDb while we're watching this. So the actress who plays Dr. Leslie Tompkins, which is Jim Gordon's current girlfriend at the end of season 1, Marina Baccarin, I think her name is. Yes. So she plays Dr. Tompkins. She plays the voice of the computer on The Flash. And she's going to star as Vanessa Carlyle and Copycat in Deadpool, the movie.
I didn't know that. That is interesting. Now, Daniel, you were going to say something there.
The characters that play the actors that play the Flash Arrow. There's been people have been starting like petitions and things to get them in the movie universe because they fit those characters so well. People think that they should play Green Arrow in the movie universe and the Flash in the movie universe in the upcoming Justice League movies, but I think that would ruin what they have on TV, which is special. I think what they're doing with the TV series is amazing and should keep it that way.
I mean, that's the thing. Again, as well, your average movie-going audience, they might not watch the show. Yeah. So when they see on TV, what's his, Arrow, the TV show character. Oh, I thought he was playing him. No, he's playing him in a different series. So they're the same character. Yes, but he dies in that film. So why is he still alive in that? No. Basically, it feels a bit. That's what I like about Marvel. It's really easy to understand who's who and where they are and who's alive, who's dead. Basically, it's simplifying compared to DC.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's one other thing I kind of want to bring up when we're talking about looking at the two in comparison. And if you look at the color palettes that are used in the shows, one of the things about watching Gotham is you see a lot of rain and a lot of grey and a lot of dark, and it's very much, I think you said earlier, Ricky, it's a darker universe.
Yes.
That they're trying to portray.
Yes.
And I think they do that really, really well in Gotham, and you kind of see that, I think, to a large extent in the Nolan Batman movies as well. Whereas if you look at Marvel, it's kind of it's a bit bright primary colours, and it's all a bit it's a little bit less sophisticated.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the right phrase I'm looking for, but it kind of feels a little bit less less challenging.
Yeah. Have you seen Ant-Man?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
The colours. Look at the colours compared to, say, the trailer for. Look at the colours for the trailer of Ant-Man compared to the colours of Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
Batman vs Superman is dark, gritty, which Batman should be. But Superman, I've always felt, should be sunshine, hope, justice, bright. And it's like, that's what really ticks me off. Like, Batman is dark, Superman is light, maybe that's what I didn't like about Man of Steel. It felt really sort of dark, you know.
Yeah,
I
well,
think-
I loved Man of Steel. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
about
did as
yourself,
well.
Danny.
Yeah.
David,
I
have you
thought
seen Man of Steel?
So that's the Henry Cavill
Yes,
movie.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I think I've seen it. Is that the one where it's oh gosh, who plays the villain in that one?
So-
Michael
No, but he
Shannon.
looks like he's bitten a bee. He looks like he's just got
Michael-
a scrunched up face.
It's Michael Shannon. He played the serial killer Richard Kuklinski in the movie
Right.
Iceman as well, and he's in
So-
Boardwalk Empire.
Right. So I just that's I kind of found it really really strange to be rebooting Superman so soon. Do you know?
I think
Um,
if the 2006 one didn't exist, then it'd be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But
It's
What do you-
2006.
you guys have all seen Superman Returns, right?
Yeah.
I really,
I mean, Kevin Spacey is just like fantastic in that, chewing the scenery up.
yeah.
Um,
Run! I love that scene.
yeah.
I wonder who showed it. Just, I love that. He's so brilliant. But the thing is, that film, it was trying to capture the original, first two Christopher Reeve films, but at the same time be a modern film.
Modern interpretation.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, Bryan Singer's done some interesting work. The guy that directed it. I'm not sure I was absolutely convinced by the guy who played Superman, Brandon Routh. That's just me. I'm not, for me, I'm afraid there is only ever going to be one Superman, and that's going to be Christopher Reeve.
Can I just say something quickly? Brandon Routh is in Arrow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he plays the character in Arrow very, very well.
I'm not saying he's not a good actor. I wasn't convinced with him in that role. But
Oh, no.
then again,
Neither was I.
I'm of a generation that really believes a man can fly. You know,
Yeah,
and that's
the
Christopher
card-
Reeve.
Yeah,
His
And,
character,
and I think the first two Superman movies that they did with Christopher Reeve, they were perfect. And I know visually they're not as impressive as the movies nowadays are, but I just felt they were just beautiful pieces of work.
yes.
The character he plays in Arrow is very, very good, and he's found his niche, I think. But yeah, he definitely should have been Superman.
Doesn't he play Atom?
Atom. Yeah, Atom. The name escaped me for a second.
Oh, Jesus. What? Honestly, that is just the worst Atom. It's like, hang on, so he's Atom, right? Yeah. So he's like Ant-Man, so he shrinks. Yes. But we didn't see him shrink. We saw him more Iron Man than Ant-Man style. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, gee.
he's only
Maybe it's
he's
because I'm
only
a huge
become the Atom.
I know, but it's like really just I don't know. But have you all seen
He's in
Daredevil?
Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes, Daredevil is a fantastic piece of TV work. I do have to admit. The weirdest thing for me about the DC TV versus DC cinema is the fact that, as it's been pointed out by all of you, it's different universes. Not so much, the current TV universe is different from the movie universe. Each of the movies are contained within their own universe. For instance, Ben Affleck's playing Batman in Dawn of Justice. But that Batman is separate from the Batman of the Christopher Nolan movies,
Yeah.
which in turn is separate from the Batman of the Tim Burton movies, and so on and so forth. And the same with the various incarnations of Superman. So Christopher Reeve, you can say that Christopher Reeve was the Superman of the Michael Keaton universe to a point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And more so, say, Brandon Routh was the Superman of the Christopher Nolan Batman universe.
Actually, they're the same. They're the same Superman from.
From
Same
the
timeline, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
well,
No. It's not the same timeline. After the events of Superman 2, Superman pisses off to space to try and find Krypton. So that creates two timelines: Superman 3 and 4, and Superman Returns. Superman 3 and 4 are dreadful.
Yes, they are. Right,
Oh,
you
come on.
just can't compare them to the first two movies.
Come on, Richard Pryor.
Okay, if I had a time machine, I'd go back in time and I'd make a movie of Heroes for Hire, Richard Pryor as Luke Cage, Gene Wilder as Iron Fist. There's a comedy. Honestly, that's the film that's my hypothetical must-see film.
Well, I don't know about that one.
I have no idea how you follow that. I really don't.
Exactly. You're just there. How to shut up a podcast presenter? Say this. But no, seriously. Just to conclude, lads, would you say that the DC TV universe puts the DC, message across better than the cinematic universe, or is the cinematic universe doing that much better at the moment?
I think it's 50-50.
I like what's happening with Gotham, and there's enthusiasm for the other shows. I think the TV exists as a body of work in its own. I think the Nolan movies as a trilogy and a body of work are really, really good. But then I think you start to struggle to say, are they part of the same thing, or are they, if you like, different views on how all this hangs together? I'm finding it quite difficult to kind of join the dots on that one. So I think they each have their own merits. I think you can enjoy Gotham without having to be necessarily clued in on having watched all the Batman movies, for example.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think you can enjoy it just as a piece of TV.
I do like that about DC compared to Marvel. Because Marvel, if you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you got, just a spoiler alert, Winter Soldier, if you've not seen it by now, also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., spoiler alert. When it's revealed Hydra is inside of S.H.I.E.L.D., that creates the effect. Basically, if you've not seen the film by that point, you're going to suffer. You've got to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to watch my favourite show for how many weeks until I can watch the film. So basically, they've sort of written themselves into a corner like that, but at the same time, it's great if you do keep up with the films.
Right. So I mean, I think Marvel very much tries to tie the two things together. Even with like Agent Carter, which is is a relatively new show, and just sat and watched the third episode of that tonight. Actually caught up with that tonight. I love what they're doing with it. I think Hayley Atwell's just really, really good in the piece, and James Darcy, who plays Jarvis, is a very interesting piece of casting. So you can enjoy those shows just for what they are, and as I say, visually they're beautiful to look at. They've got that whole kind of post-war 40s view of the world, and I like it a lot. I really do. But it ties in with everything that's going on in the Marvel universe. That all it's consistent, it's canon, it's all in the same one. DC, they're not as together on that. I'm not sure it matters unless you feel compelled to somehow draw them all together, and I don't. That's why I say I think I can get to appreciate, like, the Nolan movies, or the Michael Keaton Batman stuff as their own pieces of work, and they don't have to tie together, and they don't have to be part of the same timeline.
So would you guys say that it's fair to say that in conclusion, we can agree that you have to take the TV universe that DC produce as a separate entity from the movies, and that if you want to sit down for a couple of hours a week watching some good TV, then DC is an option for you?
Yeah.
Or would you say that the movies they tell the DC universe story better than the TV shows, for instance? Would you say it's fair to say that they can be taken separate, as David pointed out?
The TV universe, I think, backs up, if people want to find out information about the DC characters, give him extra information. Like take Gotham for example, it gives you extra information about how the Riddler became the Riddler, how Penguin became Penguin, and so on and so forth. They complement each other even though they're different universes.
Right, so effectively the TV show is the Wikipedia of
Yes.
the movies.
Yes, I agree. Gotham especially.
Yeah, and what about yourself, David? Would you say that that's a fair thing to say?
I can see where Dan's coming from with that one. I'm not that fussed about trying to tie the two of them together. I think I can appreciate the movie stuff on their own merits. Batman versus Superman. I've seen the trailer. Yeah, I don't know. It lacks a bit of wow for me. I'm not excited in the way that I have been by some of the other movies that we've had coming through. So I don't know. I may be pleasantly surprised and may come up with something really, really interesting. But I'm not. I don't think you need to tie the two of them together. I think you can appreciate them on their own merits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Theo? Do you think that that's what David says is probably the best conclusion, that they can be appreciated in and of themselves without having to tie them together?
Yeah, I pretty much agree, yeah. So I do like the idea of a connected universe, but at the same time, it's like if you've read Ultimates, you can read Avengers. It's like, okay, I don't really like what's going on in Avengers. What's happening on the Ultimates? I do like that in the comics, so you can go between different universes to read different stories. So it's not tied down to just Hank Pym is currently Ant-Man in this universe. Hank Pym is currently Giant Man in this universe. He's Yellow Jacket in that universe. So you can pick and choose. Like, okay, I want to read about Yellow Jacket this week. Okay, this week I want to read about Giant Man. I want to. Basically, I do want more of that, but at the same time, I want it all in the same. So I have a coherent plot. If that, what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you say. I get what you're saying. You'd like to see them be able to tie the universes together, but with the difficulty that DC have of telling all the different stories from different universes at the same time, that is actually going to be really difficult unless, as I said earlier, they use something like the Flash breaking the universe with Speed Force and recreate as a movie the Infinite Crisis, or something along those lines. I'm not saying that they're going to do that. I'm saying that's just one possibility that, as we said earlier, we don't think is going to happen because they'd be silly to do. Now we're running out of time now, so all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for joining me this week, lads. And for you listeners at home, RambleMedia.tv are still currently running the Black Ops 3 beta code competition, and more details for that can be found on the site at RambleMedia.tv. I'd like to thank you in turn, Danny, David, Theo. Thanks for joining me this week. And
you're very welcome.
I'd like to thank you, the listener, for joining us. As usual, Super Game Bros podcast is available at Zencast.com and downloadable on iTunes. I've been Ricky McMillan. You have been the panel. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.